by the credibility of registered voters so far. Yesterday, at the end of automated biometric identification system, INEC identified 2.7 million as the number of ineligible registrants in Kano State.
Hello everyone, good day according to your time. Welcome back to Learning is the Key. Hope you guys are doing well. Please, if you are seeing my channel for the first time, don't forget to subscribe and kindly hit on the notification button. Kindly follow my page as you do that. God bless you. Yes guys, here is another hot news for you guys. This is really amazing, like it's really like incredible. Okay, yeah, that's the right word. It's incredible because these things we are hearing from Nigeria, like when politicians try to manipulate the population for their own selfish reasons, you don't hear this. You don't hear this in other places. This happened in Nigeria. Imagine how can votes that is yet to come. We still have like months before the vote. They have already started cashing fake registration card. How is that possible? Why are Nigerians so selfish? Because this is no longer the government though. The Nigerian people right now, they need to choose for themselves what they want for their future. They, according to this news, they said they caught people in Kano and also in other communities, in other places. So guys, I will drop the video for you guys as I normally do it. So you leave your opinion and your comment is always welcome, because this is our time for Nigerians to take a good decision for everybody, not just you are doing it for you or for me. No, because the way Nigeria is going right now is not the best for anyone so far. But it beats my imagination to see that the same Nigerian people, they are the one eating themselves. They do not know how to do the right thing at the right time. How can this be possible that before the election, days before the election, this is going on, all in the name of 500, 1,000, 3,000 naira, the money that you can't even pay your own child's school fees with? Why are some Nigerian people heartless? I pity those people because they are doing what they are doing out of ignorance.
The new resident electoral commissioner in Kano, Zango Abdul, during a meeting with members of election stakeholders, said at the end of the exercise, 2.298 million Nigerians successfully completed the registration as new voters. Also, the resident electoral commissioner reiterated that the commission, as mandated by law, will continue to monitor the activities of political parties, as well as track the campaign finances of all political parties as provided in various sections of the Electoral Act. Joining us on the show this morning as we discuss the discovery of the unqualified registered voters and more is Oluwole Osase Uzi. Welcome to the Morning Show, Mr. Uzi. Good to have you back on the Morning Show.
Doctor, thank you for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, let's start with this registered voters. Over 2 million of whom have been dismissed as unqualified after due diligence on the part of INEC, but 2.2 million alone from Kano State. But we recall that the INEC chairman had even said before now that 23 INEC officials who were involved in cases of multiple registration or fake registration will be, sanctioned appropriately. But given the fact that INEC had upgraded its, technological facilities, how on earth did over 2 million fake voters get onto the list in the first place?
Thank you. First of all, let me correct an impression. I heard about this 2.7 million ineligible registrants online yesterday, and I was a bit worried. I said in Kano State. I looked at the source. It was an otherwise credible source of information, a reputable newspaper and with an online presence. But it is an incorrect story. Either the reporter got the figures wrong, or the resident electoral commissioner was misquoted or he got it wrong. Somebody got it wrong. The total number of ineligible registrants as released by INEC is about 2.72 million people, not just in Kano State, but nationwide. The total number of people who turned up under CVR for registration in Kano was about 560-something thousand. Less than 100,000, about 99,762 or thereabouts, were actually held to be ineligible. It was not 2,760,something in Kano. So that figure is quite wrong. It's totally wrong. If you go to the INEC website, and maybe later on I'll share the statistics I harvested from the INEC website, you'll find out that is the total number of ineligible registrants throughout. They're not fake registrants, they're ineligible. Ineligible in the sense that either they're not supposed to have gone for CVR. Possibly, they had registered before and they're now doing double registration or multiple registration, either deliberately or inadvertently. Inadvertent in the sense that they were required to do the transfer and they did not do that transfer. Rather than do a transfer, some people just went and registered afresh. Now, running the AFIS and the ABIS rather, trying to get biometric, running through the biometrics, INEC now found out that some of these people were previously on the register, so they knocked them out, they removed them. And some others registered more than once in the same CVR exercise. Either deliberately, they changed clothes, changed names, and things like that. Those things were deliberate. Those ones were also, when they were discovered, left out. And I believe that those did not pass what INEC called their business rules. For example, if you were clearly underage, then you were removed. But having said that, there are other people who passed through the sieve who were not cut out. So I also read online yesterday night and shortly earlier hours of this morning, for example, that there are some underage registrants in Bauchi, in Ebonyi State, surprisingly, and one or two other places like that. So yes, the 2.7 million is nationwide, and it's for those who were ineligible to register under CVR. That's just to put the records straight.
Right. I'd like to ask you, why are we even still having this case of underage registrants? Because somebody would have thought that the technology INEC is using should be able to sieve through the system quickly. You know, in fact, some people have suggested that maybe it's time for INEC to be able to share its API with people and tech guys so that they can sieve through the system and authenticate this registration system. It is sad that this is happening just months before the election. So a lot of people are skeptical concerning these underage voters, a lot of them. Face of children, most importantly.
No, they shouldn't be skeptical. I am not aware, INEC is not aware of any technology that actually tells the age of a person, save for things like MRI, which does not even tell you your age and just says by the time they study things and see the fusion of the bones, you're probably more than 17, you're more than 18. Certain things happen at different stages ordinarily. Facial recognition does not tell age.
It tells an age range.
It does not tell an age. So the essence is that both the facial recognition and the other biometrics being employed does not tell the age. So it's impossible for INEC to tell the age. There are borderline cases where it would be difficult for the officials in charge of registration to make a call. And then they can, by law, require you to produce evidence of your birth certificate or something like that. But I've said on different platforms that sometimes there are some clear cases where minors are very clear. Then he has a duty to reject that applicant. If he does not, then he probably commits a criminal offense under the Electoral Act. But those borderline cases in communities you go to, they come with parents, they come with guardians and say, this is my child, this is my older, I've known him, he's over 18 years old. Well, some of those things you cannot argue with. When you ask them for birth certificate, they say, sorry, in this village, in this community, we're so rural, we don't have birth certificate, it was not registered. You ask for baptismal or other evidence that they're over the age, and they don't supply it, but they put pressure on those young officials who do the registration, and sometimes some of this will get through. What is worrisome and what people should be worried about, not necessarily skeptical, are those that sift through the net. And that is why the display of the voters register is ongoing now, because the figures we have are provisional figures. That's why it's called a provisional register of voters. When the claims and objections are over, all those found not to have been qualified by age or by other reasons, maybe they're not Nigerian citizens, should and will be removed from the register. That is now the duty of INEC once these complaints are raised. So it's important that we just don't limit our discussion onto social media and studios, but for Nigerians, for citizens to take it up and say, look, I know this person is not of age, and file an objection. Similarly, there's claims. If your name ought to be in the register and it's not there, this is time to make a claim. If you are misspelled or your gender is wrongly categorized, this is the time to correct those things. So that's why it's called claims and objections. You object to anybody who ought not to be in the register for whatever reason, by law ought not to be in the register, should be rejected. Okay,
that process is ongoing. We hope that INEC will make a big success out of it. Claims and objections in all the 8,809 registration units across 774 local government areas in Nigeria. But I wanted to ask you about another controversial issue: electronic transmission of the results, electronic biometric verification. You recall that before now, there was this controversy that some people wanted to stop BVAS. INEC has now come forward to say that there's no going back on biometric verification accreditation system. There's no going back on the INEC election reporting electronic portal, what they call IREV. Only yesterday, John Ray, I think, no, that's not his name, Olson, the the US political counselor in Nigeria, was also supporting INEC with regard to BVAS and electronic transmission of results. And Festus Okoye, your successor, who spoke at that meeting yesterday with the Inspector General of Police and other stakeholders, also said, look, INEC is not just ready with BVAS in all the registration areas across the country. INEC will also provide backups. Will you say that that has put to rest the controversies over whether INEC will deploy BVAS or IREV, and that we can be rest assured that BVAS or any other machine will not malfunction on election day in all the 800 and 809 units in that election?
Thank you, Dr. Abati. First of all, no, Festus Okoye Esquire is not my successor. I was the director of Festus Okoye. He's a national commissioner, but he sits in charge of the Information and Voter Education Committee. But having said that, the controversy was needless. It absolutely was needless. And there should be trust in what INEC says regarding the deployment and use of technology. You let Nigerians not forget that the INEC has been at the forefront of the deployment of technology. INEC went ahead of the law. The smart card reader, INEC went and deployed it and tried to make it supersede the manual process. But the Supreme Court said, with the standing of the law as at that time, you have gone beyond yourself. This is not the right time to do that. The law does not permit that. So let's get that clear. The law now is that INEC is entitled to use a smart card reader or any other technological device. And at the time, I was still an official of INEC at that time. I told them, remove this smart card, because even at the time we were passing that, the bill was being debated, INEC had moved ahead of the smart card reader. It had evolved and developed a more sophisticated technology. It had used this bimodal system, which is two. Before, it was just the thumbprint that was read. Now it reads officials. So those are two things. And technology evolves. Perhaps by the time of the next cycle, the BVAS might be jettisoned and a more sophisticated, more efficient technological device may have been developed for this purpose. So the law, as it now stands, has corrected what some may have termed the anomaly that led to the Supreme Court saying that smart card reader was not recognized. And that's what the Supreme Court advised. The Supreme Court said, look, it's a fantastic device, but you must go and amend the law. Unless and until you amend the law, you cannot use this device. So now the law has been amended. So the controversy is needless. You cannot stop INEC from deploying that device. The only thing you could do to probably curtail it is to go back and amend the act and remove the deployment of technological devices in the system. And that, I think, Nigerians will rise up against, because Nigerians have seen the benefits of technology in the whole process. So, yes, INEC will. It didn't have to reiterate it, but to build confidence of the electorate, that, I think, is why it was reiterated that, look, that is the law as it stands today. And I believe that will be the law as come February 2023, when the elections will hold. Is there any guarantee that they will work perfectly? It's a man-made device. It is because that these things are good, they'll be tested, but in case they don't work, that is why you get extras. So in case they don't work, there will be other supplies that will come and replace them. And the law says, if for any reason there's a persistent failure of the device, then the election in that particular unit will be postponed till the next day. Within the next 24 hours, INEC must go back with competent, good devices and conduct the election the following day, if the results in that particular unit or areas where the device does not work efficiently, if it will affect the overall outcome of the election, you must go back and conduct the election.
But still speaking about that, I'm sure you'll have been hearing that there are attempts by some people to get court orders as regards, using manual methods to say accredit voters because the devices are not working. There have been concerns raised over and over and over again. What do you say to that?
Yes, in a democracy, you must be vigilant. If you are to enjoy freedoms, vigilance is the essential word that you must have at the back of your mind all the time. Things have happened in this country. We have had court orders to stop elections, stop the release of results of elections. So everybody should be concerned that we don't go back to what happened a generation ago. Some of the younger people might not even realize, except they are good students of history, about how near the precipice we were with those interventions by the judiciary. So we cannot, with a wave of the hand, put these things aside. We should all be worried. We should all be eternally vigilant. And I'm happy what Arise is doing, what the media is doing, what civil societies are doing. There's a rollback. Those retrogressive elements who are trying to turn the law upside down will not have they might have their day in court, but they will not have their way, and they should not have their say. And the judiciary should not be compliant with those of us citizens who are trying to subvert the process for their selfish reasons. So yes, we should be vigilant, but the law as it stands does not recognize manual accreditation. So I don't see any judge, I don't see any judiciary, and I have faith in the judiciary, especially the judiciary of 2022, 2023. I don't think any judge will go as far as to make an order asking that INEC should revert to the manual process. It's very clear, it's very plain, and I think the judges will give, justice of the superior courts will give an interpretation which accords with the intendment of Nigerians, with the intendment of the legislature, which is that technological devices should be deployed in both the accreditation of voters and also in the transmission of results and the IREF portal.
Well, following the attacks on INEC offices in Ogun State, in Abeokuta, to be specific, Abeokuta South Local Government, and also in Osun South Local Government, the Inspector General of Police met with stakeholders yesterday in Abuja, the force headquarters, chairmen of political parties, to be specific. And at that meeting, he said the federal government of Nigeria has now deployed the military, the DSS, the civil defense, and the fire service to all INEC units across the country to protect INEC facilities. So already, across the country, security has been deployed, the IGP tells us. On election day, also, the same units will be deployed. Now, do you suspect, as some people do, that this 2023 operation is going to be almost like a military operation, a police operation, rather than a civil exercise? Now that 98 days to the election, we're told all forces, including fire service, have been deployed to go and protect INEC offices. What's your take on this fear of violence before, during, and after the elections, with the NSA himself saying the federal government of Nigeria can guarantee peaceful election? There must be something they know that Nigerians do not even know, hence this panic before the elections.
Well, there's real concern, and the concern is real, that the general insecurity in our society will have an adverse effect on the electoral process. We know we live in an insecure environment presently. Some of those things are not new that was said. I know that the fire service has a representative at the INEC headquarters, for example, and it's been so for several years. I recall in 2007, there was a truck which was laden with, I think, petrol, and some people believe that it had explosives in it, positioned near the INEC headquarters, not too far from your Abuja studios. And the fear was that it was sent there to bomb the INEC office. The investigation was carried out. I don't recall the outcome of that investigation. Nobody was prosecuted. But a vehicle was recovered. Now, ever since that time, even before then, there were incidents of fire incidents in the INEC headquarters. So there was a presence of the fire service in the INEC headquarters. And there has always been policemen, other security agencies SSS and other security agents, even without the elections. INEC facilities are sensitive facilities for whatever reasons. And ordinarily, you're quite right. Almost everywhere else in the world, so many other countries, it's an ordinary civil exercise. People go with a normal day. People go about their normal duties. They vote. They go back to their shops. They go back to their work and things like that. But we know that it's not so in Nigeria. We know that's not the case. It's not peculiar to Nigeria. I know that those who have observed elections other countries of the world, in South America, for example, you don't see snipers on top of public buildings. In some countries, you see that. You see extremely tight security because you don't want people to take advantage of that day, gathering of large crowds and things like that. Our level of security is not as high as that, but it's still fairly high. On a scale, it's going on to the red zone. It's important that INEC facilities be protected. It's critical. You're witness to that. In last week, it was 2 different local government offices. Anambra office has been, several offices in Anambra in the east, several offices in the north have been destroyed, have been burnt. There are some cases where local government elections are conducted. They're not conducted by INEC, but they're conducted by CX. But because of the angst of the people, arsonists go and destroy INEC offices when they are not even responsible for conduct of local government elections. So that is the thing, is where people are. Those who say that we are militarizing the process are probably blind to what is happening, deaf to what is happening presently. It's important to strike a balance. It's important to guarantee people's lives, people's security, security of properties. It's very important. You don't say because of election, arsonists should go about and having a field day. But at the same time, people should feel confident to go about their process unmolested. I think the debate should be, should the security forces act professionally or should they be used to intervene in the process? They have no business. The job of the conduct of the elections is that of INEC. The job of ensuring security in and around the electoral process, in and around the elections, is the job of the security agencies. And even the army has no job there. The Electoral Act has it specifically. Their role is very, very limited. Surprisingly, it's just to protect officials and protect public properties. That's, if you check the Electoral Act, that's all the Act says. Technically, it doesn't protect journalists, let's say, the media, it doesn't protect voters. But the police and as a lead agency and other security agencies have that responsibility. And that's what it should be. Unfortunately, we live in a violent society, we live in an insecure society, and to secure it, you have to have presence. We don't fear things until we see people in uniform, especially if they're armed. If they're not armed, we don't seem to fear or respect them sufficiently. That's the kind of society we live in. But we hope it will not be so militarized such that people will be afraid to come out. The facts, the data, the evidence so far is that elections where there have been huge deployment of security forces have not fared better in terms of turnout or worse than any other election. So that's a good prospect to think about.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Oluwole Osase Uzi, for joining us on The Morning Show.